We've got a super thanks to begin today's mailbag here on the Cowboys Report from Giovanni Gallardo. Hope I pronounced that correctly. It says, what if Jerry takes a step back? We bring in Troy Aikman to be the GM, Romo to be offense coordinator, keep the coach as a DC, Mike Zimmer, see how Bill Belichick feels with the star, and if not, see what's up with Deion. How would you see that going? Just thinking out loud, LOL. Dan Quinn threw that game, by the way. Appreciate everything you do. #1 Cowboys channel by a long shot. Thanks. First off, thank you, Giovanni. I'll go kind of rapid fire here. I don't think Dan Quinn threw it on purpose. I just think there were a lot of mistakes made from the coaching staff and the players as well, of course. Everyone gets blamed when it's that bad of a show, right? Romo's not going to be an OC. I think hiring a play caller with zero experience of actually calling plays, audibles, adjustments don't quite count the same, and zero coaching experience is kind of a bad idea. Also, it's a worse job. #1 #1 color guy is way better because you make more money for less hours. Belchick, sure. I don't want Deion Sanders as my head coach. All-time favorite football player. I don't want him as a head coach. That is going to make this even more of a circus. So I'm passing on that stuff there. Zimmer can stay as the DC, sure. I don't have any major complaints with that one. If you hire Bill, I'm thinking he's going to want his own guy. But you know, in a bubble, I think Zimmer can absolutely work there. I think the Aikman as GM kind of run is over. Plus, you're losing Will McClay, and that actually is a concern I have a couple of years from now. If Will goes to take a GM job somewhere else, how do you replace him? Because his staff does a really good job. That came in via super thanks. And if you put a super thanks in on the show, we'll give you a shout out at minimum. Even if it says, Tom, you suck. We will put it on the show. So click that thanks icon, edit your message, and send in whatever you want to send. From Tiffany, why haven't we paid CeeDee? Is our front office just dumb, or is there other reasons? Dumb. This is kind of what they do. Like, this is how they operate. They don't like paying players who want the market rate early. They drag it out. They do it all the time. They did it with Amari Cooper. They did it with Dak twice now. They did it with Tank Lawrence. They did it with Ezekiel Elliott. They always cave in the end, and it costs them more money short and long term. From Brian Perry, will the Cowboys sign a running back? If someone gets cut, I think so. Of the current guys out there, my guess is no, they aren't. But I think that they'll keep an eye on it depending on how things go early on in training camp. Because I look at that room and I go, they need help. From Mikey Cowboy, how bad is the Cowboys salary cap deal? I assume you mean like situation. Not nearly as bad as some people are trying to tell me. And what happens here, sometimes, I'm not calling them out in particular, just I've seen it from a lot of different places. Even Florio got the numbers wrong. Like, they're just using they're using wrong math. Which this is not like, basic algebra. This is a little bit more complex than that stuff. It's not grade school math. Like, it is complicated. So you have to use the math right. There's a lot that goes on here. And as weird as this might sound, the Cowboys salary cap situation, short-term and long-term, is actually more challenging to manage if they don't pay anybody. It's actually easier to manage, including the dead money that they're so worried about, if they do pay people. Now, I've been mulling this over in my head. Do you want me to do an in-depth Cowboys salary cap situation video? The real numbers, what it looks like this year, what it looks like next year, how you absolutely can pay all three guys if you so choose. Do you want that video? It's a pinned comment on today's show. I want to hear from you guys. Y for yes, N for no. Unitive. If the Giants fire Daboll, could he be a potential replacement of McCarthy? Maybe. He'd be on my list. It'd be a little bit disconcerting that they kind of rode with Daniel Jones and it all kind of fell apart. I saw some good things in year one for Daboll. It was kind of messy in year two, which I don't think should be overlooked. So let's see how it goes, because he and the DC did not get along well, and you can't have dysfunction in your coaching staff. The first of two super chats from We Don't Wife These 304s. Let's Go is a beast. Operation White Lie. He faces an uphill battle to make the roster. So, yeah, he's a great football player, though. He and Josh Ball, man, they're worthy of draft picks. Absolutely. I appreciate you understanding Operation White Lie. Another one. What's more clickbait? Sileo saying Brady was going to Dallas or Craig Carton saying the Jonas were signing the team? So background if you don't know. Back when Tom Brady was a free agent, Dan Sileo had claimed that he had been told that Tom Brady was going to be a Dallas Cowboy. Now, of note, Dan Sileo claimed that Tom Brady was going to be like a player for 5 different teams. Now, in the end, I give it to Carton because at the time, there wasn't anything to click on Sileo's Twitter. So there really wasn't anything, there wasn't quite clickbait because there wasn't anything to click, you know? Craig Carton has now said twice he thinks Jerry Jones is going to sell the Cowboys. The most recent one was that he's going to sell it to Saudi Arabia or the Saudis in general, I guess. What? No. Absolutely not the case. That's not how any of this works. I think what Craig is trying to create is just clicks. So I'm going with Craig Carton because that is the most fraudulent idea theory take from Craig Carton since he was actually indicted for fraud and went to jail for it. Now, if you want the Cowboys official NFL draft hat, you can get yours today over at chatsports.com/Cowboys draft hat. That link will be in the comment section and the description of today's show. I would click on it, by the way, just so you can get a good feel for it. You kind of see that little 3D effect. Where you, like, not as good maybe on the navy or the gray, but it is there. Go click the link. You can see and actually get a better feel for what it is there. Chatsports.com/Cowboys draft hat. From Jennifer, do you feel we could go all the way to the Super Bowl with our current roster? You'd need a level of breaks and performance that I wouldn't consider to be realistic. Like, I don't think you're that far away. But, I think you're still a top 10 team. Somewhere in that range. I also think you're at best the 3rd best team in the NFC, if not the 4th best team. Which means you're short of the conference championship game again. It's really tough for me to believe this team is gonna be the different team. It's finally going to be different this time when they didn't make any moves to get better. I think they're going to be a 10-win team, maybe win 1 playoff game. I think that's a realistic expectation. I would be happily blown away if they actually made a big run. From Tiffany, who's your top 5 replacements for Mike? I want to see how the year plays out, but we did do a kind of video on this, by the way. Ben Johnson, high on my list. Bobby Slowick, high on my list. I kind of don't think you're going to get Mike Tomlin now, but call about Bill Belchick. If you want to go that route, that's fine. It's also why I don't buy this whole theory of, well, the Cowboys are resetting their roster to let Bill Belichick take control of it. They could have already done that. There was nothing stopping them from hiring Bill Belichick this year. And Bill Belichick is old. He ain't gonna lead a rebuild. That's why I didn't get that theory at all. So, Ben Johnson's number 1 on my list. I think that's just, he's young, bright, innovative offensive mind. I want that guy. From Sean Jones, how invested is Lance in McCarthy? It's a good question. Maybe I mentioned that at one point on a show recently. I don't know how much he is. Because this is what happens when you are coaching for your job on a 1-year deal. Mike saves his job by making a deep playoff run. That's going to be with Dak Prescott. We can be honest there. I think Mike might be more invested in developing Trey Lance as a young, long-term piece if he was under contract. If he had 4 more years, 3 more years on his deal, where he wasn't feeling all of the pressure to have to win everything right now. Like, if there's only so much time you can work with players and coaches. So if you're Mike McCarthy and you got to choose between I'm going to spend an extra half hour working on stuff with Trey Lance, or I'm going to spend an extra half hour figuring out what my play action package is going to be with the offense, you're going to pick the current first guys. The development side kind of gets pushed to the side a little bit in order to make sure you're winning games now. That's kind of one of the downsides of putting everyone on a 1-year deal, basically. In fact, there's 4 guys under contract next year that you couldn't cut if you wanted to. It's 4 of them. That's it. You've got no commitments right now. It kind of turns into, well, what's best for the team? You might be able to argue that that's Trey Lance. What's best for Mike McCarthy right now? It's not Trey. So is Mike McCarthy back with the Cowboys in 2025? 1 for yes, gets at least 1 more year, or 0 for no. Julian, would you say Javonte Williams is more of a realistic option than what he was 4 months ago? I don't think so. Think about what has Denver done this offseason. They drafted Bo Nix. They want to put players around Bo Nix. Their offseason addition was a 5th-round pick in Audric Estime. I don't think that really replaces Javonte Williams. That could change based on what we see in camp in the preseason, but I think it's far more likely he's back in Denver. From Dust Pack, do you think Caelen Carson can start? I don't want him to start in year 1. I think you're not going to get as lucky with a day 3 pick at corner like you did with DaRon Bland every time, right? So I think you're more likely to try to give him a year and grow and develop. I think he could become a starter. I don't think starting him year 1 is necessarily a great idea unless you are really, really pressed with injuries and you kind of have no other viable options. Now, I do want to start him in the preseason, and we will be live for every single Cowboys preseason game, even the 10 p.m. Eastern one. We'll be live for that one and have no sleep the next day. Hit that sub button at youtube.com/CowboysTV for more free Dallas Cowboys YouTube videos, including but not limited to watch parties, news, rumors, mailbags, and oh so much more. Hit that sub button if you haven't already. From Josh Hutchie, what is CeeDee Lamb's trade value? It's a good question. Let's operate under the you are willing to trade him perspective, which frankly I'm not. I don't want to do it. I think it's stupid. I think a minimum you're asking for a Tyreek Hill package, or at least somewhere in that ballpark, which is a first, second, and change. The problem I run into here, because I don't know if you're going to get two ones. It hasn't really happened, from a receiver going for twins. It hasn't happened before. So I don't know how feasible, realistic that is. But if you get a first, a second, and change, you have to spend that first on a wide receiver immediately because you don't have a true one. And whether you're winning now, you need Lamb. If you're rebuilding, you want to have Lamb because he's going to help your young quarterback. Well, whatever way you slice it, you should build around a 25-year-old superstar receiver. I think that's pretty straightforward. So what would you do with CeeDee Lamb? T for trade, P for pay, N for nothing at all. You're going to let this one ride out. Sound off in the comments section of today's show.